So, you find yourself with a tiny horror cross-stitch kit from the thecozydh. Luckily, that's me. My name is DH, my pronouns are they, them, and I've made this short video to help you out if you have never, ever in your life cross-stitched, picked up a cross-stitch kit, you have no idea what you're doing. I'm going to get you started. I'm not going to cover everything in this video. I'm just going to give you the basics, and if there are other topics that I think that you should explore, I will tell you what to look up or provide links down in the description. All right, so you've purchased your kit. This is how it comes. It has everything to get you started. Let's see what's inside. The first thing we have is the pattern. This is the floss that you will need. It's wrapped up just like that. I'll get more into the floss later, but this is the way that it comes. You have your fabric, which is called Aida. This is 14 count black Aida. You also have a size 24 needle. I've already loaded the Aida into a hoop for you. This is a 3-inch hoop. And mark the center stitch. This is a tailor's fabric pencil. It will wash out quite easily, but we're also just going to stitch right over it. So this is what you get in your kit. And that's everything you need to get started, except you will need a pair of scissors. All right, so you've got everything. Where do you start? Let's take a look at our pattern. All cross-stitch patterns, well, most of them, will be in the form of a grid. You can see that this one is in color, so the different colors are different colors. However, each color is also associated with a symbol. So if you can't tell the difference between the colors on the pattern, all you have to do is look at the symbol. For example, the little horn symbol here is DMC 413. That's the color symbol for the dark gray. And you can see we have the little horn symbol all around here. So all you're going to do is follow this pattern. If there's a white stitch, you stitch a white stitch. Each square on the pattern corresponds to a square on the Aida. I've marked the center stitch here, and on your pattern it's also marked. So you can start with whatever color is near that center stitch. On our little ghost face here, that is black, so I'm actually not going to start with the black. I'm going to show you how to do the pink. So let's take a look at our floss card. This brand of floss is called DMC. Each DMC color has its own unique number. The numbers on the pattern here correspond to the numbers on your floss card. These numbers are universal for all DMC floss, so if you wanted to make this again in the future, all you have to do, go to Michael's, go to your craft store, and pick up these floss numbers. So the first one we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the pink here, which according to our legend is DMC 3326. Over to our floss card, here is DMC 3326. Now we are going to pull this off. It's not even knotted on, it's just looped on lightly. I'm going to show you something because I didn't give you very much pink because as you can see there's only 4 stitches of it. Now the way that floss normally comes, I'm going to pull off the white here. This is how the floss comes. It actually is composed of 6 strands. I don't know how well you can see that, but you can kind of just gently pull them apart like that. There are 6 individual strands. Unless otherwise stated, cross stitch is usually done with 2 strands. So all you would do is very carefully grasp one strand and pull it straight out. Just do one at a time. If you do 2 at a time, you will get all kinds of messed up. So let's set our floss aside. So for the pink, we have 2 strands there. See if I can show you a little bit better. There's our 2 strands of pink. We also have our needle. If you're having difficulty threading your needle, you can use a needle threader. I tend to just do it the old school way that I learned when I was a kid. Take your needle, the eye of the needle, fold your floss over the eye. Let's fold it in half like that. You pinch quite firmly, pull the needle out, and then you can see there's just a little tiny folded bit of floss peeking out. You're going to poke that through the eye of the needle, wiggle it down, and then pull through. So there's our needle threaded with both strands of floss. All right, so here's the center of our pattern, and we're going to start with this pink stitch here, which means that we have to count over 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 stitches over, and 1, 2, 3 stitches up from the center. If you're not 100% accurate, it's okay. If you're off 1 or 2, I've given you a lot of extra fabric, so you're not going to run out of fabric. So what you're going to do is take your needle, and from the back, so we're going to make sure we're still in the same spot. So 1, 2, 3, and then up. 1, 2, 3. All right, you're going to take your needle from the back. Let's see. It's a little bit hard to see because this is Black Ada. You're going to pull through until you have just about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of floss hanging out. Now this is the starting method, which is called a buried start. If you want to look up a different starting method, you can look up the loop start, but I'm going to show you the buried start. All right, so we've got our little tail. Now what I do is I will hold this in place with my finger while I start the stitch. Each stitch is a cross. So you're going to go from one corner of the square to the other. It doesn't matter which way you go first, as long as you're consistent. All right, so we've got 1/2 of our stitch done. We've got one little line. And now we're going to go back the other way. However, you want to flip back over to this side and make sure that when you bring the needle back through the hole, it's capturing your floss tail. So you give it a little tug, and now that's not going anywhere. Then we complete our stitch here. There you go. You've made your first cross stitch. Just one little X. So that's going to be this little X here. So we're going to do the next one beside it. Just like that, going the same direction for our bottom leg that we did before, and back across for the top leg. You want to sometimes check. It's always a good idea to stitch over your tail a few times. If you know that you're going to be stitching more in that area, you can see we're going to be making a whole bunch of stitches around here. I wouldn't worry too much about getting it with these first few stitches. You're going to get it later on. All right, now we have to count again. So we've got 1, 2, and then we need to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches and do another pink one on the same row. So let's see. What number did I just say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Haha. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that we found our next square. So I'm just going to come under, do my bottom leg in the same direction. And if you find that you're having difficulty finding the holes, there's absolutely no harm in flipping it over to find it a little bit easier. Black Ada is notoriously difficult to see through. So a couple tips I can give you. One is take a white piece of paper and hold your Ada on top of it. It's not really. So you can see that you can see through the Ada a little bit better and see where the holes are. You can also do this with a phone screen or a tablet screen, or if you have a white cat and she happens to be sleeping nearby, you can use your white cat for the same purpose. All right. So we have done our 4 pink stitches. Time to refer to our pattern. I'm just going to leave this thread kind of hanging out there for a second while we look at our pattern. Now, I know I've done those 4. If you would like to be sure, you can take a highlighter, pen, marker, whatever you'd like, and just mark those off on your pattern. And then we take a look and see if there are any other pink stitches, which in this case, it's pretty easy to see that there are not. So we're done with the pink. Time to finish it off. This is also called fastening off. So again, there are several methods. This is going to be the easiest one for you. Flip your work over, take your needle, run it under one of the stitches that you just did, and then take another stitch, run it under, and you want to do that maybe 3 or 4 times. Again, if you know you're going to be stitching more in this area and this tail is going to get caught by other stitches, I wouldn't worry about doing too many under overs like that. Then all you're going to do, snip your thread, leaving a short tail, which again, you can bury with other stitches. This thread is now spare. You can put it back on your floss card or throw it out. All right, so that's how you get started with cross stitch. All you have to do now is continue following the pattern. You can choose to do the black stitches next, the white stitches next, whatever you want to do. The method that I just showed you, where you create 1 stitch at a time, is called English stitching. If you'd like to look up a different method for doing larger blocks of colors, you can look up Danish stitching. Either one works. It's really whatever's most comfortable for you. As long as you're making little crosses, you're doing it well. Just try to keep in mind that you want to keep them all going in the same direction. Your bottom leg always going in the same direction and your top leg always going in the same direction. Mess up, not the end of the world. All right. You've stitched your tiny horror. Time to finish it up. You have done all of your stitches, buried all of your threads, trimmed all of your ends. Now, how are you going to make it look as nice and picture perfect in a cute little hoop that you can hang up on your wall? Well, luckily, here's one I prepared earlier. So I'm going to show you how to frame and finish your mini in the hoop that was provided in the kit. The next few steps I'm going to show you are optional. If you want to proceed directly to the framing, all you need to do, grab your handy lint roller, give it a couple brushes, and skip the next little bit until you see me putting it back in the frame like this. However, I do recommend that you wash, and if you do have an iron, press it before you hang it. It makes your stitches look a little more even, it makes the colors look a little more bright, and I think it just makes it look a little bit nicer. And you don't need very many fancy tools or equipment in order to do it. Again, this is totally optional. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your stitching out of the hoop. An embroidery hoop is comprised of 2 parts. There's an inner ring and an outer ring. The outer ring is going to have a spring like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold the nut here and unscrew it. If you're finding it's a little bit stiff, most hoops do come with the spot for a screwdriver, so you can get something to grip the nut and unscrew it using a screwdriver. You don't want to unscrew it all the way, just enough so you can see it's loosening the tension there, so you can pull that right off. All right, so we're going to save our hoop for later. Now I've already trimmed him into a circle. I usually recommend doing this after you wash. So let's go wash and iron this boy. Washing is very simple. You're going to take a small bowl, a dash of dish soap, any dish soap will do, and some warm water. You want it on the hotter end of warm, but as long as it's not boiling and as long as it's not cold, you should be good. So you're going to swish it around a few times. You can scrunch it up a little bit, try not to scrunch too much, and then you let it soak. How long do you let it soak? Well, I have ADHD, so I usually let it soak until I've remembered that I was in the middle of washing and ironing a piece, and then go back to it. So, 20 minutes or so.
2 weeks later.
After you've soaked it, give it a nice thorough rinse to get rid of all of those soap suds. Again, you don't want to scrunch or wring at this point. You want to try and keep it as flat as possible. Now we're back at our workstation. And he is all nicely washed. Now, if you don't have an iron, you can skip the next part. Just press him as smooth and as flat as you can and let him dry completely. If you do have an iron, however, you can press him to get out any wrinkles and just fluff up the stitches a little bit more. So for this, you're going to need a dish towel and a hot iron. Always, always, always use caution when using an iron. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your dish towel. All right, you're going to lay, again, as flat as you can. You're just going to roll him up in the towel like that. We're not going to crinkle, we're not going to smoosh. Just roll him up in the towel. Roll, roll, roll. Kind of give him a bit of a roll, get some of the water out, and then you're just going to let him sit in the towel until your iron has come up to temperature. Ada is cotton, so you can use the highest temperature setting on your iron. And yeah, we're just going to wait a few minutes for this iron to come up to temperature. All right, it's been a few minutes. I think our iron is up to temperature, so I'm going to unroll my towel. Free the boy. Now he should still be slightly damp. If he's not slightly damp, you will need to spray him with water or something. Make him a little bit damp because it's not the iron that's actually going to get the wrinkles out, it's going to be the steam. So what you want to do is place down your towel on your work surface. Flip this boy upside down. We don't want to press the stitches because that'll get him all nice and flat. And then you're just going to set the iron on there. You're not going to press it down. You're not going to move it around. Just going to set it down. Leave it for 10-15 seconds. Move it to a slightly different spot. You can see the steam coming up off of it now. That steam is what's going to get all the creases out. Move it to a slightly different spot. Wait 10-15 seconds. Now be careful not to leave it on any one spot for too long. You can burn the Ada. You can burn your work surface. You can burn yourself. Don't do it. Be careful. All right. When you're fairly certain that you've gotten all the creases and crunkles out, there we go. He's looking good, looking fine. What we're going to do is we are going to remove our damp towel, and we're going to let him lay flat until he's completely dry. When he is completely dry, you're going to want to grab your hoop, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, we're back. It's later that same day. It's the next day. It's a few days later because you forgot you were doing something. But it's time to frame the boy. Now for this part, you will need your original 3-inch hoop, your needle, and some floss. Doesn't matter what color. You just need about 4 strands, and you want to make sure that it is long enough to go around your work about 1.5 times. Not a precise science. So what I'm going to do first is, this is 6 strands, so I'm going to pull out 2. You can use 3 or 4. If you've only got 3 left, don't worry about finding a 4th one. I just prefer 4 for strength. So we're going to get him back into his hoop. Now, the way that I do this is I set down the inner hoop, and then I try and center him as well as I can, just using my fingers to find the edges of the hoop. I'll figure out where he's most likely to be the most centered. You can always fix this later. And then you place the outer hoop on top. If you're struggling to push it into place, use the nut and the screw to loosen it. The looser it is, the easier it will be to push this down into place. You want to get this as far flat to the table as you can. And you also want to make sure that this fabric is as tight as it can. You should be able to drum on it a little bit. So the way that we're going to get it nice and tight and shift him a little bit, once he's in, you're going to tighten this nut. Tighten it, tighten it, tighten it as far as it'll go. Which may not look like that far, but you'll feel it. And flip him upside down, holding down the inner ring. Just the ring, not the fabric. We're just going to give the fabric a little bit of a tug. And what we're doing is we're tightening it up. Because once we tug the fabric out, the tightness of the hoop will keep it from loosening back up inside the hoop. Just give your fabric a little tug. If he's too far over one side, you can tug on that side a little bit more, tug on that side a little bit more until he's perfectly centered. You need to take the hoop off and try it again from the start. That's what you can do. We've got him in the hoop the way that we want. Next step is take your scissors. You kind of want your fabric scissors or the big boy scissors for this. And you're going to cut off the excess Ada. You can see I've already kind of done this. I'm going to cut off a little bit more. I find that about an inch, inch and a half from the hoop is going to be good. Doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to have a rough circle. All right, I think that's going to be good for us. Maybe trim a little bit here. The fabric's going to be wavy from being in the hoop, so it's not going to be easy to get that perfect circle. However, I don't recommend cutting it before you get it into the hoop because you're not always 100% sure how much extra fabric you're going to have in any given spot until you actually get it in that hoop. All right, now we're going to do what's called lacing. So I do kind of a quick and dirty lacing. Some people's lacing is incredible. It's artistry in and of itself. Mine is not, but mine will get yours hung up on the wall pretty quick. So we're going to thread our needle. And then starting at any point around the circle, I usually start at the top just because I like starting at the top. What you're going to do is you're going to fold your fabric down a little bit. And you're going to basically sew these two flaps together. And then I'm going to take the loose end here and we're going to knot it. Yep, an actual knot. If anyone tells you there are no knots in cross stitch, you can tell them that someone on the internet told you that there are, so you're good. All right, so that's secured. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to weave your needle in and out all around the edge. So we're just going to go maybe 1/4 inch from the edge of our fabric, under, over, under, over, so we have returned back to the beginning. This is kind of what this looks like. Now what we're going to do, kind of keep a hold on this original tail to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. But you're going to pull this so that all of that fabric cinches right in. You can kind of pull both tails away from each other, towards each other. All right, so that's going to cinch all of that fabric in. Now what I do is sometimes I'm in a real rush. I will pull these as tight as I can and then knot these together and just leave it like that. What I also like to do is I do a little bit of lacing. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your needle, which is still attached. You're going to go under and then pick a spot kind of across. And then another spot over here. And maybe another spot over here. What you're doing is you're just reinforcing this cinching in effect that we're doing. So you want to make sure that you're keeping, This is why I recommend that you use multiple strands, because sometimes it will snap on you. So you kind of saw where I was going with that. You're going to go over, over, over. I'm just going to unpick this. So unfortunately, we've only got the one lace. I'm just going to tie this to this. This is a fantastic example of why things don't always work out. And it's the backside of your cross stitch. No one's going to see it. No one's going to know. How are they going to know? No one's going to know. Let's just tie this up a couple of times. Now, if you do wish to do something a little bit more secure, you can absolutely go back with another length of thread and just lace back and forth. However, there's our guy. He's done. All right. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed doing your first cross-stitch kit. If it is not your first cross-stitch kit, I hope you found something useful in this video anyways. Now, right about now, you're going to see some buttons popping up. If you hit this one, you'll subscribe to the channel. If you hit one of these, you go to some of my other crafty content.